Nestled into the shore of the St. Mary's River is Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Commonly referred to as the Soo, it is the most northeastern part of the Upper Peninsula. While it is generally known for being the home of the Soo Locks and Lake Superior State University, it's also gaining notoriety for hosting the Soo Film Festival. For this episode of the podcast, I sat down with Mr. Jason Markstrom, who is the president of the Soo Film Festival. As always, we have a lot to talk about. So without further ado, let's chat it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 8. I can't believe we are 8 episodes into the Chat It Up podcast. I am currently in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and I am sitting here with Mr. Jason Markstrom. Jason, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me on.
You have the distinction of being the first person on the podcast who I had never met prior to coming on the podcast. So this is actually the first time you and I are actually sitting down and talking. We've never met each other before. So that's kind of interesting for me, just because I at least have had some prior knowledge of who I've been talking to or chatting with up to this point. So I'll just kind of jump right in. You're kind of a mystery. I tried to look and find some stuff on the internet about you and what you do, and obviously there was some stuff there, but I was able to find that you were born in 1975 in Kinchlow. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so for those listening in who may not be aware, where is that?
It's about 20 miles south of here. You drove by it. Well, you drive by it on I-75.
Sure.
But that's where the Air Force Base was. I was actually born on the base.
Yeah, okay, so that's the interesting thing. There's some interesting history there because of the Soo Locks, really, right? That was the Air Force Base that really, I think it was built because of World War II. They at least from the information I was able to find, is that the base played a key role in they wanted to keep the Soo Locks safe, at least to start World War II. And then as the Cold War kind of moved on, they kept it going, I think, until the mid-'70s. Did you grow up on base?
No.
No, you just grew up in the area?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was it like for you growing up on the east end of the UP?
The UP is a long way from everywhere.
It is.
So that's one thing. But, wow, you stumped me. No, it was good. Going to school. We've got family downstate, so I'd make regular trips down there.
Okay. So what did most of your childhood consist of on the east end? I mean, a lot of playing outside or hunting, fishing, getting into that kind of stuff?
Yeah, a lot of playing outside, riding bikes.
Okay.
Back in the day, we could still play guns, and all the kids from the neighborhood getting together.
Sure. So were you routinely coming to the Soo or going to St. Agnes, or were you kind of just located?
Just in the Soo, pretty much.
Just pretty much close to the Soo. Now, did you go to high school here in the Soo? Or
yes.
Okay. Because there's a lot of small towns and small schools kind of in between. There's your Detours and your Cedarvilles and all of that kind of in between. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's interesting. I'm super glad that you called, or I shouldn't say called, that you contacted me about the what we're going to be talking about today, because it was very serendipitous for me, because I was looking for something to bring me to the east end of the UP. With this podcast, I want to make sure that I'm covering all ends of the UP, and it's easy to kind of focus on just the central UP, just because it seems like, with Marquette being right there, that's kind of the hub. There's a lot going on. The east end doesn't get a lot of love a lot of time. I feel like a lot of time maybe you guys kind of associate more with the lower peninsula or, south of the bridge than you necessarily would the rest of the upper peninsula. Do you find that to be true?
A little bit, yeah. I don't know if complex is quite the word, but there's a little bit of a feeling that I don't know if ignored's the right word, but I know Marquette being the bigger area, it's
right.
more of a destination than necessarily here.
Sure.
Even though the Locks are quite the draw. And
yeah, and the university.
Yeah.
For sure. So when you graduated high school, what year did you graduate?
93.
93? Okay. So when you graduated, you headed to Northern Michigan University, correct?
Correct.
So you headed over to Marquette, to the city. So what did you end up going to school for?
Film and video.
Film and video. Okay. So, well, that's going to fit right into what we're talking about here. So when you finished school, what brought you back this way? Was it just you finished and you came back home?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to find a job.
Sure. Yeah, as most people do when they finish school. So then let's just jump right into really the guts. What we're talking about today is the Soo Film Festival. So you are the current president of the Soo Film Festival.
Yes, I am.
Have you always been involved with the festival from the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. So did you start as the president?
No. Our founding president was Taylor Brugman, and I'd done a lot of local theater with him.
Sure.
And he had mentioned the festival once. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do it. And then he came to me and was like, all right, film festival, you in? I'm like, yes. And that was 2014, and it was like January when he contacted me, and we put it on in August of that year.
Yeah, so that would have been 2014, correct? Okay. So, side note to that, it's my understanding. I was going to bring up Taylor because he is very instrumental in getting this up off the ground. He has since passed away,
yes.
Correct, from cancer. So rest in peace to him. But he played a pivotal role in getting this off of the ground. So it's 2014. You guys decide, okay, let's do a film festival. What was like that next step? How did you get this really like off the ground and running? Because obviously you can't just like snap your fingers and make a film festival happen. What were the steps that brought you to bringing this like to fruition?
Well, then we had to get films.
Okay.
So we had to get the word out there that we are a festival. We want to see your films.
Sure.
So I'm trying to remember, because we use there's a website called Film Freeway.
Okay.
And filmmakers can upload their film there, and then when they get notified that there's a festival, they can just push a button and submit.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't remember if we used them the first year, but the first year we had a lot of submissions.
Okay.
A lot. And we had over 450 this year.
Wow.
So yeah, but we had even more that first year, so it was we had to go through all of that and
Sure.
see what we want to program.
Yeah. Now the theme of the festival is Great Lakes, great movies. So the majority of the films, or at least it seems like a lot of them, you try to at least have a focus somewhere around Michigan. That's not necessarily the only qualifying factor. There's movies that have nothing to do with Michigan, but that seems to be a focus. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yeah, more of the Great Lakes in general, but especially Michigan.
Sure.
I don't think a lot of people realize how much production is actually going on, even in Michigan and the Great Lakes, Chicago.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff going on. So we like being able to show that off.
Sure.
And
so this is the 5th year that you guys have been doing this, and you're holding this at what would be considered a historic theater here in the Soo, and really it wouldn't be possible without the Soo Theater Project.
correct.
So even though we've already started talking about the festival, we're going to jump back just a little bit to the Soo Theater Project. I know that the theater was bought in about 2003, correct?
Something like that.
Okay. Do you have a little bit of knowledge as to kind of the Soo Theater Project in general and what that's about that you could...
A little bit.
Yeah.
They're a nonprofit that they bought the building that is the Soo Theater with the aim to renovate and to be a focus for arts in the Sault Ste. Marie and this end of the UP.
Sure.
So a lot of music education, theater. They put on several shows through the summer.
Excellent. I just think that it's really cool, just that story in general, kind of piggybacking on to what you're doing with the film festival. I mean, the fact that this theater was originally opened in 1930 and it was mostly movies, but there were some vaudeville acts, plays,
Yeah.
concerts, that type of thing. And then in the 70s, it was kind of split into the 2 theater rooms. But then it had shuttered its doors in 1998.
Yeah.
And so you think, okay, well, if it was bought in 2003, that's, well, there was a 5-year window there where, it was just closed. Where now there's this resurgence. There's been so much work, and the place looks beautiful. A lot of volunteer hours and time going into fixing this place up to not only hold your film festival, but as you had alluded to, concerts and other theater and classes for kids, different projects and camps that they can do. I believe, isn't that called STARS? Isn't that the name of that official program?
The
Soo
Soo Theater Arts Resource. I forget the S.
Studios, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
So it reminds me a lot of what they've been doing with the Browmart Theater in Iron Mountain.
Okay.
Very similar situation. Growing up when I was a kid, it was split into multiple theaters. You could watch shows there, but it shuttered its doors and it just sat closed downtown for quite a while. And they have slowly but surely been building it back up and fixing the place up and doing theater and concerts and doing a lot of what you guys are doing here. And I think that that's super important. And in your festival plays a big role in that too. I mean, it brings in what I would imagine a lot of people. Have you seen the attendance get better over these 5 years, or I guess what?
Yeah, I have, and we're still in the process of getting the word out, because I'm still hearing, oh, we have a film festival here?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, did you see the poster right there? That kind of thing.
Sure.
But and I think a lot of communities decided, there's a lot going on, so you got to cut through the clutter, so to speak.
Sure.
To get to your audience.
Yeah. So this year, at least from looking at the website and the films that are available, this seems to be a pretty ambitious year for the festival, from looking back at some of the prior films. And when I say ambitious, mostly it seemed to me, at least looking, that there was quite a bit of an increase in animated films. I don't know if maybe that's just my kind of...
I probably, I don't have the numbers.
Sure.
But, and that wasn't by design or anything.
No.
A lot of that's just what gets submitted
Sure.
in a given year.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I did see that there were films from 19 different countries, though.
Yes.
That's unbelievable. I mean, we talked a little bit about, we're focusing on primarily around the Great Lakes, but to have from 19 different countries these films coming in, that's a pretty big deal. I noticed that you have essentially the film festival broken into like different blocks or categories. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, we've always programmed in blocks, but I don't know if we necessarily identified them as such. But this year we organized the films in the blocks kind of thematically. Not so much the shorts, because we just mixed everything up in there.
Sure.
I think that, I kind of liken that to you just putting your iPod on shuffle.
Yeah.
So, it's always a surprise what you get. Especially if you forget what you put in there. But, then we got...
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Our what would you call that? Not Siri, my Alexa. My Alexa decided to kick in and try and talk to us here in the middle of our...
Rude.
Yeah, I know. Super rude. I'm sorry. Continue with what you were saying.
I was going to say that our next block that's coming up is a couple of documentaries.
Yeah.
And one is about a movie theater in Michigan, and the other one is about a musician who I'm sure most people wouldn't recognize, but they've seen his name if they watched television at all in the last 20 years.
Sure.
Snuffy Walden. He did the music for 30-something, Roseanne.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, excuse me. So the documentary about the movie theater, it's called Remember the Alamo, and it's about the Alamo Theater that was in Kalamazoo.
Yes.
It just all of a sudden closed.
Okay.
And well loved by film goers and people in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And there was some kind of, I don't know all the details, but there was some kind of dispute with the landlord, and
Sure.
he said, "Well, we're closing."
Wow.
But the good news is I've heard since that the Alamo Theaters are going to build a theater in Detroit.
Oh wow. Okay. So that's very interesting
So
to hear
yeah,
too.
so they haven't abandoned Michigan, which is good to hear.
That is very good to hear.
But Up to Snuff is the documentary about Snuffy. It's interesting because if it weren't for Michigan, he might not be here like at all.
Really?
It turns out not only is the film's director from Michigan, the director of photography is from Michigan. Snuffy's wife is from Michigan. Snuffy's assistant is from Michigan.
Sure.
And some of the people in the Timothy Busfield is one of the people they talk to, and he's from Michigan.
Oh, okay. So very like home-centered, I guess
Yeah.
you could say.
So yeah, and the director, corresponding email, and he's telling me how his family still has homes here.
Sure.
So he was very excited to be playing in Michigan. So
Yeah. Are there any other? I love documentaries personally. That's like my cup of tea. I really like documentaries. Like that's typically what I watch on Netflix. I kind of just work my way through the documentary section. What sort of other films are you showcasing this year, or that kind of have you excited, or ones that you kind of feel are more kind of feature?
my personal taste tend towards more the genre stuff. So like last night we had a block of sci-fi films.
Yeah.
We had some shorts. Then we had a feature film called Future by some gentlemen from the Detroit area.
Sure.
And then a tradition we've had is our late movie on Fridays that we call the Friday Night Frights.
I saw that, and I like horror movies too, so I was almost kind of like, man, I wish I would have made like a weekend out of it, or, instead of just coming over for the day. But,
Yeah, so we had some shorts with that. And
Okay.
Actually, one of the shorts in that is from a filmmaker who's been here before. We actually had 8 directors returning this year.
that's impressive. Is that the most you've ever had in like 1 year return?
I think so.
Okay. That's super interesting to me.
It's-
But from the way you're kind of talking about or describing some of these movies, you really kind of have a little something for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're not, I know not everything is going to be liked by everyone, but if
Sure.
you find like one thing that you like, come on, check it out.
Sure. So you went to school for essentially, like you said, film and that sort of thing. Have you found you've always just kind of had an interest in?
I have loved movies since I can remember.
Okay.
I remember when I was a kid, we have a county fair here the last week of August and through Labor Day weekend.
Sure.
And when I was a kid, I always wanted to go with the Demolition Derby. I want to see the cars smash up. And one year I was finally going to go, and my mom says, well, do you want to go to the Demolition Derby, or you want to go see Fox and the Hound? Fox and the Hound. And I believe, to this day, I've not been to the Demolition Derby. And every year I'm like, I should go.
Sure.
But, yeah, so I've always been, a lot of my earliest film-going memories are in this building.
That's really cool.
Growing up, I didn't realize that they had split the auditorium.
Right.
So when they were taking down the wall, it was just amazing to see. There's just huge
Yeah.
room. I didn't realize there was a stage in there. And actually, I was in the first play that was put on that stage after they took the wall down.
What was the play?
It was something about a time, I don't remember the exact title, but it was written by a local guy. And it was, that year was the 150th anniversary of the Locks?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep. I think I remember seeing that. Yeah. So it was kind of something about like the history of...
Yeah, so it was this, mad scientist invents this time machine, and it brings people back over the course of this era.
Sure.
So there was some natives that came in around the time
Sure.
Father Marquette was here. I played a French priest. I don't think I played Father Marquette, but so I'm wearing the frock and the hat, and I'm got a really terrible French accent.
Sure.
And but so like there was a guy playing one of the construction workers on the locks from way back when.
Okay. So
it was pretty interesting.
It's interesting to me you brought up the point about taking down the wall and seeing how just immense the theater was, because I had the exact same experience with the Brown Theater that we had talked about just a few minutes ago. I had not known it was all one big theater prior to that, just being a kid or whatever, not really understanding the history. And when they did the same thing there and they took down the walls, it was like, whoa, like super impressive and just gorgeous, this big theater. Do you find, so I know you went to school for film and that sort of thing. You mentioned you were actually also in the play too. So you kind of do you do a little bit of both? Do you like filming, like being behind the lens, but also being in front of the lens, or?
Yeah. I've done a few local theater productions, and done some short films. I was telling the gentleman who made Future, that's Rob and Josh Cousino. I was talking about there was a film festival in the Detroit area. As part of the festivities, would do a 48-hour challenge. Are you familiar with that at all?
No. What it
is at a certain time, like on a Friday, it's usually 7 p.m. That's how they did it.
Sure.
They would give you a genre, a character, a line of dialogue, a prop, and they would give us a location. So you had all these 5, and there might have been one other element. But yeah, they give you these 5 elements. Usually with like the genre, you would spin like a Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, wow, okay.
So you could get sci-fi. The first year we got chick flick. We're like, great, we don't have any women in the cast. So that was another part of the challenge, of the 48-hour challenge. But they give you these 5 elements.
Sure.
Excuse me. And so then you have to craft a film using these 5 elements. And then if you leave one out, then you fail.
Wow.
So then I got to make a sci-fi flick about an astronaut who likes rutabagas, and he has to say eureka at some point, that kind of thing. So then you have to bend and shape your script, and you've got 48 hours to write, shoot, edit, and submit. So by Sunday, 7 p.m., you got to have your film across the finish line, or you're out.
Yeah.
So I was telling you, I would go downstate to the Detroit area with my friends, and we do this. And the festival ran for 5 years, and we were the only team that did all 5 years.
Really?
Yeah. So the last year they gave us a lifetime achievement award. It was a lot of fun. It was also interesting because that last one we did a lot of callbacks to all the previous year's projects.
Sure.
So like I think it was the second year. One of the locations was the Eastern Market. So then the last year they also required the Eastern Market. So in the last year, we had this wide shot. You can see my character from the previous one doing the same thing. He's on a cell phone. It was cool for us to do the callbacks, but if you didn't know, you didn't know. But.
Sure. So, what sort of genres are you into with film, or which ones do you kind of seem to enjoy most? Obviously, that's so different for everybody. It's very kind of personal. But what are the types of films that you kind of find yourself most drawn towards?
I'm really not too picky. I like a lot of the high caliber dramas that Oscar bait. But I backed the Monos Hands of Fate Kickstarter on Blu-ray. Did you hear about that project?
No.
I don't want to take up too much time, but it was there's a guy. I think he was in California. He was a director of photography, and he collects films on film, the reels.
Yeah.
So somebody had pointed to him to an eBay listing. There was a distributor or a theater had closed, and they just put everything in storage. So they had just reels and reels of stuff.
Sure. And
they needed to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But by the time he got to the eBay, because he was traveling at the time, by the time he got to the eBay thing, it had closed. But he contacted them anyway and said, if you got anything left, I'll be interested in taking a look at it. So it's all still there. Come on down. So this storage unit opens the door, and he's just going through reels, and he found like one of the work print for Monos. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie.
No.
But it looks like it was shot on mud. Like Mystery Science Theater 3000
it
was one of their episodes. Like that's where it got famous again.
Okay.
So it looks like it was shot on mud. It's just terrible. Well, it turns out the film was shot on like Kodachrome film. It looked good. Like it was actually shot well, but because people had seen, at one point in the life of the film, it had been sold to TV distribution.
Sure.
So it had been duped from the film to video.
Sure.
And then it just kept getting duped, so people were just seeing terrible copies. But you go back to the work print, it's gorgeous.
Wow.
And so he was like, "Oh my God, I've got gold here."
Sure.
So he made a deal. Actually, I think the guy just said, $500 you can take everything, and he
Sure.
He did. So it turns out he had the work print and I think he had a release print. He had 2 copies of it. But
Okay.
so he was able to, so then he did the Kickstarter to do a proper digitization restoration.
Sure.
So a friend of mine pointed me to it, and he's like, I'm doing it because it's if this happens again, we need to encourage people to save these films.
Yeah, it's film preservation essentially is what it is.
So I signed up. I got a T-shirt and a button and a Blu-ray out of it. So
interesting.
But yeah, so it's my tastes run a rather wide game. There's not a whole lot I won't watch. I mean,
sure.
I do have certain criteria, and I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but at this point, like, I can usually tell from the trailer. I also read a lot of film news sites, so I hear about when they sign somebody to write the script. By the time I see a trailer, I've already made up my mind.
Sure.
So I like to use the word discerning, but I don't know.
Well, but at the end of the day, really, it's a passion.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing from my side of it is that you're able to take that passion, and beside it just being something that you're passionate about, as far as like watching movies and studying film and knowing film, but you can put it to use and actually help your community around you and give something back to the community with this film festival.
Yeah.
I just think that kind of part of it is neat.
Yeah, there is a big part of it being like, just throw your arm around somebody, like, check this out.
Right? Yeah.
Because there's a lot of the stuff, the stuff that we're showing you wouldn't have another opportunity to see.
Yeah.
Unless, Up to Snuff might end up on Netflix or something.
Sure.
But a lot of the stuff, especially the shorts.
Yeah. So how many years have you been the president for the film festival?
This is my first year.
Okay, so this is your first year.
Yeah.
Prior to being the president, how were you? You had mentioned you were kind of always involved. What were some of the other things that you had done for the festival?
Well, previously I was the vice president.
Okay.
So Taylor did a lot of the heavy lifting as far as dealing with the filmmakers, and Film Freeway and all that, and I did a lot of the press releases, a lot of the promotions on the social media and whatnot.
Sure.
So it's a bit of a learning curve this year. Like, now I have to do all that.
Sure.
And one of the conversations I'd always wanted to have with Taylor was like, all right, what are you doing?
Because he actually didn't just do the metaphorical heavy lifting. I mean, he literally did heavy lifting when they bought the theater to back in 2003 to get this place back into shape. And
Taylor was the technical director here at the theater, so anytime they did a show or had anything going on, you had to talk to Taylor to make sure everything worked.
Sure.
And that was one of the reasons why he wanted to start the film festival, because it was another way to show off the theater.
Absolutely.
To get more people in here and to see what's going on.
Sure.
So, mission going pretty well, I'd say.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. As far as, obviously it takes more than one man to run this whole show. Even just walking in, obviously there's a lot of people doing different things. Is it all just volunteer work?
Mm-hmm.
People, how many volunteers would you say that you have over the course of the festival?
Well, the programming, there's 5 of us on the board, and 3 of us are actively programming it.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 are a lot of support, like fundraising and legal advice, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So it's we're like I said, we had over 450 submissions this year.
Right.
So we had to do our best to get through all of them, and then we got a lot of people.
Wait. So you actually you went through all of the...
I went through the majority of them.
What's the majority? Can you put a number on how many you watched?
300-ish.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got to really love movies to be able to sit through 300 of them.
Yeah. So we go through, watch stuff, and we've got other volunteers because it's all online, so you can watch the stuff anyway.
Sure.
In fact, one of my friends, he summers in Romania. He was able to watch some stuff there.
Okay.
Actually, one of our feature films was from Romania.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, well, I should probably explain that a little bit. 'Cause I don't know if anyone's actually wondering, but so my friend Rich, who I went to Northern with, made the movies with downstate.
Okay.
His wife is from Romania.
Ah, okay.
So Romania's a little bit more on my radar than maybe the typical person.
Sure.
So this film Octave was submitted through Film Freeway, and then Film Freeway had sent out an email letting look, this is what's submitting this week. And I said, oh, Romania. Oh, so I watched the trailer, like, this looks really good. So I invited them to submit, and they did. And
very, very interesting. It's a cool connection because, like you said, Romania's probably not on a lot of people's radars.
Yeah.
But to be able to have a film there that you kind of have at least a little bit of a connection to is certainly interesting. So the festival itself, it runs for, it's 5 days?
It was 5 days this year.
5 days?
Yeah.
What about in the past? Has it always been 5 days? Or?
Well, last year was the first year that we also had films at the library. And so we did 6 days. It was a Tuesday through Sunday, but we opted to go Wednesday through Sunday this year because Tuesday was 9/11.
Yeah, sure.
I thought that'd be kind of crass to...
Yeah, that's just kind of a somber day. People probably aren't really going to be out watching movies,
it
so to
be
speak.
good. It'd be rah, 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 come see my movies.
Sure. So with this being kind of the 5th year of this film festival, do you see it continuing to grow and evolve? Are you at like a place where you're kind of happy with the size of it and the structure, or do you have further ambitions on where you can take it?
I do. I think our immediate concern is just getting more people to come see it before we worry about more venues or just making it bigger.
Yeah.
So, but I've got some ideas on things I'd like to do. We're out looking at ways to show movies during the off season.
Okay.
So we might not necessarily have a movie that will play at the Soo Theater, but if we can find another place.
Sure. Well, you pretty much have covered everything that I wanted to talk about with this film festival. I'm just super excited to kind of check out and see some of the movies this afternoon. I'm going to sit down and go through a couple of blocks, or the film blocks that you have, the documentary one, and then I think the next one is like romance.
Yeah, it's a date night.
Or date night.
That's a lot of fun. There's got some short films. There's an animated one in there.
Sure.
But the feature is called Han Solo.
Okay.
And that's HANH, Solo.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, being the Star Wars, they're like, ooh.
Yeah.
But it was funny because I saw the title when it got submitted. I'm like, oh, clever.
Yeah.
So I watched the trailer, like, oh, this looks pretty good. And it's about this Asian woman in Philadelphia who's the trials and tribulations of dating.
Yeah.
And I really like the energy and the script, and it's pretty good.
Well, I'm looking forward to kind of checking that one out, and really the other films too. It kind of goes back to what you were talking about of seeing some things that I probably wouldn't normally see, because I kind of have my own acquired taste, so obviously I gravitate towards that. So to be able to just kind of sit down and see some films that maybe I might not necessarily have a chance to check out is definitely fun. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of add or talk about with the film festival itself? I mean, like I said, we kind of hit on the things that I really wanted to talk about, but obviously anything else that you wanted to kind of bring to the table.
I just want to get the word out there that there is a festival, get more people involved. One of the things I want to do coming up, there was so the Sundance Institute put on a producing seminar in Detroit a few months ago.
Okay.
And I briefly talked to their I don't know if it's actual their inclusion officer. I don't think that was the exact term, but it's just one of the things that the Sundance Institute has is they look for Native American filmmakers.
Oh, okay.
And we've got a couple of local gentlemen who are filmmakers. They had one of their films, was it last year we showed their film? I think it was. So we're trying to get, they were telling me that the Sundance in Michigan is looking for more Native filmmakers because I guess they haven't found anybody like north of Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
So trying to, I guess, become the local focus point. And I would like to do some outreach into the local tribes.
Absolutely.
And into the, I know out west there's more bands and
Sure.
tribes. To, I guess, maybe put on a seminar here or travel, but just to make it, or point out that, there is a way for you to get your voice and your stories out there.
Yeah, there's resources available.
Yeah, and to show them other Native people. We had a film this year by it was shot in the, I want to say Saginaw area.
Sure.
But it was about a trans Ojibwe person.
Okay.
And he's a recipient of the Sundance Fellowship for this Native Voices thing.
Okay.
So it's good. It's great to see that, and just want to make it so that a lot of people don't realize that, as I hold up my phone, you pretty much got a film studio in your pocket.
Pretty much.
So it's one thing to shoot it and get it on video, but then get some tips on how to edit,
Sure.
where to go after you edit it, who to talk to, things to look for.
That's a really interesting topic. Because obviously that's not something that you would necessarily even think of is like, well, what about like Native American filmmakers? And there's tribes all the way across the UP, and obviously, like you said, there aren't a whole lot of filmmakers that are native north of Mount Pleasant. So that's super interesting, especially because, I mean, as far as I know, there's not a ton of filmmakers across the. I mean, how many movies that you got submitted, I guess, were from like Yooper filmmakers? Any idea?
This year, I'm not sure. One thing I'd like to do is get more participation from Northern digital cinema students.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's been a bit of a frustration trying to get them
Yeah,
to submit.
especially being an alumni. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I would think that you could probably at least make some connections there.
So that's going to be a focus in the coming years, getting more of those kids
Yeah.
over here.
There's got to be a lot of Yooper filmmakers out there that.
Yeah, and that's part of why, because I imagine there's got to be a kid on the Lockview Desert reservation who's a huge Star Wars fan and wants to do that.
Sure.
But he doesn't know how.
Yeah.
And if we can help, I would love that.
Sure. Or maybe it's a kid from Calumet who
Yeah.
just has an eye for that sort of thing. I mean, who knows? The scenarios there are endless, but yeah, I mean, the one that sticks out to me, because I know I saw the DVDs for sale again, is Waiting for Wig. I mean, the awesome, because I feel like a lot of the stuff that gets filmed that's around the UP is a lot of documentary stuff and focuses on environmental, and that's all great, but it'd be nice to see more people putting together projects like Waiting for Wig and different things like that, stories based on or in Upper Peninsula locations.
Yeah.
I personally would like to see that.
Are you familiar with how Waiting for Wig came to be?
Sort of. With my last interview with Jeremy, he kind of...
Okay. I got to talk to him too.
Yeah, with Jeremy Simons. So he kind of broke it down for me how that kind of came to be with Steven and the whole crew.
Yeah, so Steven had been in a film that played here, and Kyle and Aaron came with him.
Sure.
So the running gag over the weekend was that they're waiting for Wig. Like he'd be, I imagine he's, we got business on the West Coast to take care of. So
Sure.
So it was a lot of phone calls and just,
Right.
I'll be there in a minute kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they joked that, oh, hey, we should make a movie
Yeah.
about waiting. So that's where that, yeah.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Is one little idea like that, and if you just kind of run with it and see where you can take it.
So Kyle went back home, wrote this script, Steve liked it, and they roped Steve into directing himself in a movie about him, which I'm not sure how they did. But yeah, so then their goal was to then premiere it here the next year.
Sure.
And which they did.
Yeah. So I'd like to see more of that. That's just kind of my personal take.
Oh, absolutely.
on it. I'd love to see.
I mean, I've done some shorts here in town. I'm getting the itch. I need to do another one.
Yeah.
There's I don't want to go into too many details, but because I don't have the rights for you. But there's a short story I'd like to do that I would love to do here.
Interesting. I have seen some stuff on, and I don't know if it's been at the film festival or not, but I know they're kind of doing their own mini tour with the Northbound saga.
Yeah, I need to talk to them.
Yeah, I've watched a handful because their episodes are pretty short. They're all around maybe like somewhere between 8 and 15 minutes long is how they do their episodes. It's kind of a bunch of shorts together, but it's pretty impressive. It's based primarily, at least from the scenery that I can recognize, it seems to be around the Iron Mountain, Kingsford, Norway area there.
Yeah,
but
I haven't watched any of it yet, but I am familiar with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd love to be able to arrange a screening for that here, too.
Yeah, that pretty impressive cinematography stuff there. So I need to kind of get caught up because I think there's 2 seasons. I'm pretty much through season 1, but it... something at least there that's kind of UP based because like you said, there's got to be people all across the Upper Peninsula that are just as into film, being both behind the lens and on the other side of it as you are. So to wrap things up, my final question, which I know you listen to the podcast, so you're going to get the same question everybody else does. Ketchup or gravy on your pasty? Or nothing. I guess it doesn't have to be one or the other. Maybe you have something else that you might put on it.
I like both. Not at the same time, but I'm definitely over my life, my pasty eating career, I would say that ketchup has been the overwhelming choice.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like it definitely depends on the time, the situation, the pasty. Although, if I were you, I'd be eating more Clyde's burgers than anything else on my way in. I don't get over this way all that often. I spent time here as a kid, but it was mostly for hockey. My last episode with my good friend Brandon, we talked a lot about a lot of the towns across the Upper Peninsula. I could tell you how to get to the ice rink, and that's about all I could tell you to how to do. So to be able to come back here now and not just be for hockey and finding different places, I had Clyde's for lunch. And
okay, well, I'm going to tell you right now, you're probably going to get a lot of feedback on this because one of the big debates in town is Clyde's or West Pier.
West Pier? Okay.
Yeah. So someone's going to, I'm sure, jump in the comments like, no, you got to go to West Pier. And actually, I would tell you to go to West Pier, too.
Well, maybe on my way out of town,
there you go.
I can settle it once and for all. Since I had Clyde's for lunch, maybe I'll have West Pier for dinner on my way out of town.
Yeah, I don't know if it's as divisive a question as American or National Coney,
right?
But there are definitely ardent supporters of either one.
Yeah,
they will let you know.
Yeah, well, and on the way here, after I went to Clyde's, I passed the Antlers. I remember that place as a kid when we'd come here for hockey. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of gems, I would say, around the area. I would call the Soo in the area like kind of a hidden gem. I know that tourism is pretty good, but I think there's still a lot of people that don't know. Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me over here, getting me out of my comfort zone. It's been a pleasure not only interviewing you, but getting to meet you. And as I alluded to, I'm really looking forward to checking out some of the films. So,
excellent. Well, I'm glad you made the trip over.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's time for the takeaways from my chat with Jason. The first is the importance of the arts in our communities. Across the UP, our historic theaters have become a lifeblood for all of the performing arts, especially for youth programs. It's obvious that without these theaters, our communities would be at a severe loss. And it's people like Jason that are stepping up and keeping these theaters alive. That's a big deal and a big responsibility. And that leads into my next big takeaway, which is the idea of being involved in your community. Jason and many others across the Upper Peninsula are volunteering their time to something that they're passionate about. For Jason, it's film, and for you, it might be something else. But if you can find something that you have a passion for that also helps your community, I'm encouraging you right now to get out there and volunteer your time. Not only will it give you a sense of accomplishment, but then our communities continue to get better and better. If you're on the fence about it, ask yourself these 2 questions. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? Chat It Up is a bi-weekly podcast about all things Upper Peninsula of Michigan. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and leave me a review. You can also find Chat It Up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening in. I'm your host, Shooter, reminding you to keep your chin up and your eyes forward.